Michelle Shidwar from Learning Heroes, and I'd like to invite Michelle Accardi from the National Board to kick off our PowerPoint today. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and good afternoon, everybody. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. This is the first steps in an exciting project, and I appreciate you making the time for us to come together as a cohort and start to learn a little bit about these amazing resources and the work that we're going to be doing. I wanted to, in addition to thanking you for your time today, I want to thank you for all the work that you've done with National Board that led to you being invited to be one of the pilot sites in this project. You've each agreed to participate, and that definitely comes from conversations we've had over the years and the work that I know that you're doing in your site, and definitely appreciate it. One of the things that we as board certified teachers have in common is, of course, our core propositions. And as part of all of that work and all that it means to us, we've all experienced very deeply the differences that we can make for our students and our communities. And so having an opportunity to work with some really great resources as part of a larger national project involving different types of organizations is really going to give us as a cohort an opportunity to deepen our own understanding of the work that we can do within our families and with our students around social, emotional, and academic development, as well as having some opportunities to highlight the ways that this work is incorporated into the philosophy of board certified teachers and the work and the standards that we hold ourselves to. And so when we had the opportunity to join with these amazing partners from Learning Heroes, it's just a rare chance when we come together in instantaneous agreement with the work that needs to be done in schools and in communities, and they have these resources. And I will say one of the other appealing things about the project is the generosity in which they are giving over control of the resources so that they can be used in your schools and communities in the ways that best serve the work that you're doing with families and communities. And so as we go a little further through the webinar, we'll talk some obviously about the resources. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the data collection that we're going to be doing as well. That's part of our give back, so to speak, is to help develop some of the understanding of how the resources are useful and any ways that, feedback that we may have as well. And we're going to get to see some of the great work that is going to go on over the next several months, both with our cohort and with some of the other cohorts we're going to hear about as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Learning Heroes team.
Yeah, thank you. This is Wendy Lopez Aflito from Learning Heroes. Thank you so much, Michelle, for that wonderful introduction. I want to thank everybody for making the time at the end of your busy day and week. Really just want to, as we move forward and starting to share a little bit about the goals of the pilot and sharing the resources, really just want to stress what Michelle was saying around, these resources are really meant to be integrated in a very organic, authentic way into the work that you are already doing. So if you take nothing else away from this webinar today, it's that we are very much in learning mode, and that's what this is about. And these tools were really designed to be tailored, be modified, and improved within the context of your work and your local communities. So can we just turn the slide, Terrence? And I'll just say slide for as we go through the deck. Great. So to kick it off, I'm not going to go deep into the research, but we are going to show you where it is. We'd love for you to take a look at your own leisure, but wanted to give you some context around the background of this work. So Learning Heroes, you may not have heard of us. We're a relatively new organization started about 3.5 years ago, and our mission is to inform, equip, and inspire parents so that they can best advocate for their children's educational success. And we start all of our work by first listening to parents. And at this point, we've done sort of an unprecedented amount of research to understand parents' mindsets, their priorities, their concerns around their children's educational and social and emotional development. And during our, just to give you sort of a little bit of context as to how we got here, we have a national poll that we do every year, and for over 2 years, we have found that parents believe, 90% of parents believe their child is at or above grade level, and we know that unfortunately from NAEP data and other data that it's only about a third of children that are at grade level. In addition to wanting to dig into that perception gap and help parents support their children's educational success, in that same poll, we also have learned that parents don't just care about academics. They, not surprisingly, increasingly care about their children's overall happiness and social and emotional well-being. And so this year, we wanted to dig deeper into that finding and understand how parents sort of show up to the topic of social and emotional learning. And so that's when we did the Developing Life Skills study. And really, there was 4 main findings that came from that work. Again, we're going to show you where the full research is. But the first finding that you'll see here is that parents really believe that these skills are really begin at home, right? Parents, we know, really take their responsibility very seriously as it relates to social, emotional, academic learning. They hold themselves responsible, but they also see that there's a role for school, but there are limitations to that, right? And we go deeper into the study as to some of those findings around, that balance between supporting these skills at home and at school. The second, and quite interestingly, you'll see this come to life in some of the resources, is that real-world examples of what these skills look like go a long way. And so we believe that there's a real opportunity to help bring that to life. You all, as Michelle was saying, are doing so much work. This work is the resources that we're going to show you that were informed by this research are very much program agnostic and are meant to support whatever work you might be doing in this space. The kinds of resources that we've created are really communication tools to just help bring to life why these skills are so important. The third finding was that, and we found this consistently through all of our research at Learning Heroes, is that education jargon sometimes just does not translate. So the good news is that parents are where the research is. They inherently understand that social, emotional, and academic and cognitive skills are interconnected. They get that, but they sometimes don't necessarily interpret some of the more jargony nuances of how we talk about social and emotional skills. And we've provided, you'll see in a moment, some resources that, like a roadmap and some infographics that really dig into that and can help not necessarily dictate how to talk about social and emotional skills, but provide some examples on how to sort of quote unquote translate that into parent speak. And then finally, the fourth is that, and this sort of goes to number one, where there's sort of that balance between, how to support these skills at home and at school, is that parents sort of really push back around having their children be graded, rated, or formally assessed around social and emotional cognitive skills. And we thought that was, sort of an interesting finding, given all that the conversation that there is around this topic. So again, these are just some 4 highlights. We're going to show you where the full study is. Based on what we learned through this national study, is where we've gotten to today in creating these resources that were informed, and then, ultimately wanting to road test them with our pilot partners. So Michelle, do you want to take from here and I'll pick it back up?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, as part of this partnership, we wanted to think through, what we're bringing, and when I say we, I mean our cohort and the national board, what we're bringing and what we need, and also what we're going to be giving and contributing. And I think some of this is innate to your thought process because of your deep connections with board certification, but it never hurts to call it out prior, as we go into the work. So, it's really important to us, obviously, that our teachers who are going through the process and our MBCTs and their administrators have great examples of the kinds of communication and mindset and work that we expect accomplished teachers to be doing in their communities and in support of students and their families. And I just fell in love with these resources when I saw them, in terms of I hate to use the term shortcut because it's not exactly what I mean, but they really are a very handy way to access some of the things that I know that we're all trying to get out into our community. And if we're looking at candidates and the work that they're doing, these are, great resources for some of the work that would be done under Component 4 and some of the other components, depending upon certificate area. So we're serving many purposes here, and I'm going to try and be real transparent with all of them. Obviously, the on-the-ground work, parents receiving more communication and better and deeper understanding around the work that's going on in your site with the social and emotional development. Sometimes just using some of these tools, translating research, those kinds of things, to really open and deepen those lines of communication that you already have established. That's a primary goal, because we want to always be serving our students and their community. That's always first. But we also want to make sure that because of your expertise as NBCT and NBCT informed administrators, that we're also helping to enhance and improve these resources that Learning Heroes is developing, and communicating them to our colleagues and our peer set and all the NBCT strong teachers in the Twitterverse and everywhere. And so being mindful of the fact that as you use these resources, if you see a way that a resource could be tweaked, or a use could be deepened, or something is really successful in your site, those are the things that we're going to be wanting to communicate about, so that we're, building these resources and building back as we go forward. And then also, as we go through, you'll see number 4, we really want to start working on the information that we can gather around teacher and, not yet certified and board certified teachers, and their understanding of the connections between what is already existing in the National Board's core propositions and standards and social, emotional, and academic development. And by that, I mean, I know as an exceptional needs specialist that there are specific standards in my certificate area standards that require me to demonstrate that evidence of supporting student social emotional needs. I can almost see the smile on Valerie Johnson's face, because of course, being certified as a school counselor, that is the bread and butter and everything else around that certificate area. But I think sometimes we fall into the trap of thinking, well, this initiative and this work is over here and my national board work is over there. And because the standards are so thoughtfully written, we do want to spend some time thinking through that connection to specific standards, also to the core propositions. And I will say, quite honestly, in the realm of feedback, if as we're doing this work and looking at these resources, and it comes to our attention that we do need to, beef up that messaging, we want to talk through and think about how we can do that. And you guys are, the A team. You were all very deliberately invited into this, and so having your perspectives will help NBPTS to broaden our knowledge base about any additional work that we may need to do going forward, as well as helping, of course, to advance the work that needs to be done every day. And some of us have had this conversation many times, but there is so much crisis work that needs to be done, but we have to attend to both the immediate needs of our students and the future needs of our students. And so I think almost in a sort of architecture spiraling kind of way, which is a little NBCT joke, you would, we're going to be doing, reflecting, and building all at the same time. And I know you guys are rock stars at that. So really appreciate it and want to make sure that everyone's aware that the lines of communications are open. I know none of you are shy about getting in touch with me, but feel free, to bounce back and forth if anything that advances any of those goals comes across your mindset. I will turn it back over, I think, back to Wendy.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's just such a great segue to where we are in terms of today's conversation, and really excited to kick off the pilot work with this cohort. So just briefly for some background, so Learning Heroes, at the same time that we were doing the research, the Commission for Social, Emotional, and Academic Development out of the Aspen Institute was in the midst of their work. And since our goals were so aligned, rather than share out our resources and our research separately, they sort of tapped us to be one of the main partners that will help bring forth, move the work from sort of research to practice as the Commission prepares to sunset in December. And so we've been so delighted to collaborate with them. And some of the resources that we're going to share with you you'll see were created by our colleagues at Aspen, in some cases in conjunction with Edutopia. And so I share that just for sort of full context around these pilots and case studies, and to just really stress that you all are truly sort of pioneers around sort of rolling up your sleeves and learning alongside both us and Aspen Institute, which we think is really exciting. So again, the high level goal is, as we mentioned, just to really listen and learn, and be able to create case studies that document that, so that we can share that broadly with the field, and refine the tools and really share how these resources can be used in diverse settings. So the sort of timeline, as you see here, is this is sort of our kickoff call. From now until about January, the goal is to help you really use and adapt these resources in the context of, as Michelle said, your work. From there, and we'll share the resources and the surveys. We'll talk about that a little bit at the end. That you'll be using during this October to January timeframe. Then you would share those learnings with us. Learning Heroes would then be responsible for sort of taking those learnings and writing up and creating the case studies. We would share that with you, obviously, before we shared that out. But the goal is to sort of have those case studies prepared around the February-March timeframe to be able to share those. And those would be shared on our website, on Aspen's website, and sort of broadly with the field. And so it's a great opportunity to highlight the great work that you all are doing just generally. As Michelle said, you guys were sort of handpicked. We were looking for three organizations that, one, just did great work around this space, and that secondly, we're reaching sort of distinct segments as it relates to parents, demographic groups, teachers, after school settings, out of school time. And so the other pilot partners, as you see here, are Unidos US, formerly known as NCLR, they are using the materials in the context of their ongoing parenting workshop series called Padres Comprometidos, and they're going to be using the resources in both English and Spanish, which most of them are available, and the rest of them are currently being translated if you're interested in those. And then Higher Achievement is sort of our out-of-school time, after-school partner, and they're primarily going to be focused on the middle school grades, which is exciting to us. And they're also going to be weaving it into their ongoing workshops and work with parents. And then finally, you all. And so, Michelle, do you want to talk a little bit about the sites?
Absolutely. We love all the National Board affiliated schools, but we love some a little more than others, I guess. So, and by that I mean I really am excited and appreciate the groups that we have involved here. But we did, in looking across the country, want to help with the case study by bringing in a wide range of groups. And so Tuscaloosa City Schools, if you're not familiar with them, is a rather large urban district. I guess it's all relative, but it's a big size system, and they have been embarking on a couple of different initiatives, a very strong national board initiative. They're also, among their other initiatives, starting to work on a really strong SEL project that's going to also be supported with the University of Alabama. And so they've got a pretty high volume and fairly diverse group of students and parents in terms of socioeconomic status across the district. Sims, and I know I'm saying it wrong, Sims Elementary is, of course, led by an NBCT, which is always very exciting to me, and an NBCT rock star who's comes from a school counseling background, and so I think that could give us some really particular insight. And they have great work going on with their students and their families as well. I happened to be there, I guess it was last week, and saw some of the work that they're doing to help their students with behaviors, and learning those workforce skills even as early as kindergarten, and ways that they're helping to communicate those values to them. Shades Cahaba, we've got an NBCT assistant principal, and it's a different setting in terms of the type of school district. It's a little bit more affluent than some of the other districts that we're including, but also doing fabulous work with students. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to get some sort of data around the importance of communicating with parents regardless of the socioeconomic status, and how we're seeing the resources be used and be helpful with various parent groups. Then moving all the way out into New Mexico, San Felipe Pueblo Elementary School is a Bureau of Indian Education operated school just north of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And despite the proximity to a large city, it's actually a pretty rural setting with obviously deep and meaningful community. These children, belong to the Pueblo, and families are very interwoven. So there's a lot of cross connection between the school and the teachers and the community members. And they're doing a lot of work around behaviors and are being led by one of our great NBCT supporters and as an administrator there. And so that's going to bring in both the work within a community school that is Native American, but also adding much more of the rural nature to our work. And the JKL, the Letting School, and again, I'm sure I said that wrong. I apologize. Nerves. And that is a school that has one of the largest cohorts of teachers going through the board certification process in the country. It is a Bureau of Indian Education affiliated school, but is not Bureau operated, and they are doing amazing culture work in addition to the strong educational resources they're doing. So everybody is bringing different things to the work, and we appreciate the diversity that you're bringing and the unity and moving forward with this work.
Great.
Back to
And
Wendy.
we're so excited about, again, the work being connected to such strong models and such diversity in that. So thank you, Michelle, for being so thoughtful in him picking this amazing group of folks on the line. So moving to the exciting part, right? What is this all that we're talking about? So as I mentioned, this is a collaboration with the Aspen Institute, and so these pilots and the case studies will be shared within that context. And the goal is, again, to really create resources that help with communicating with parents, particularly, but also educators, after-school providers, broadly, stakeholders who care about the topic, about the importance and the integration of social, emotional, and academic learning. As I mentioned, this is not a social and emotional learning curriculum per se. It is not about teaching those skills, but rather about communicating why and how these skills are interconnected. And so I just want to really stress that, because sometimes folks are like, well, jump to sort of the curriculum question, and these are really meant to be communication tools that support your work. So to dig into this, and we're going to click through the website in a moment, and hopefully technology will be our friend so that we can show you how to access these tools moving forward. But want to just give you a rundown of what we're going to take a brief look at. So we've created resources, again, that are meant to be really adapted, modified. We see them as yours, quite literally. So you're going to see that with some of the materials, like the social media assets and the posters, they can literally they're white labeled, so we can add your logos if you'd like. We really meant for them to be created, for you. So the first one is the Developing Life Skills in Children, a Roadmap for Communicating with Parents. It's the full research that I gave you, the sort of high level 4 main findings, but there's lots more information in there, and there's lots more examples of sort of best practice around communicating with parents. So that's sort of as a basis, really encourage you to take a look at that. There's a short presentation deck that I think is very digestible, and that will help you understand sort of how all of this work was informed. The second is an infographic.
Michelle Shidwar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wendy, I just wanted to add that our partners did all receive a copy of the research in the mail, so it should have come to you this week sometime. If not by now, if you haven't received it by now, let Michelle Accardi know, and we'll make sure you get your copy.
Yes, great. Thank you so much, Michelle, for doing that. So then the next one is a one-page infographic, which is sort of a visual of some of the education jargon that I referenced, is how parents interpret some of that, and some simple ways of how you can translate that for parents. Then finally, there is what we call sort of the Parent Perspectives Workshop Facilitators Guide, and that is meant to be really a conversation that you can help. The goal is to help spark, local conversations around what parents care about, what life skills are important to them, and then digging deeper into what those skills and behaviors look like in the context of your local communities. And so here we're showing just an example. Here, this is the introduction letter. If we can go to the next page, it was written in a very sort of hopefully turnkey way that gives you sort of talking points and walks you through it, and gives you time suggestions for each activity. We'll talk more at the end about how, sort of do a little bit brainstorming of how you might be able to use these resources. And once you get a chance to look through them, we're happy to answer any questions, but really want to stress that in particular with this workshop, so the audience can be parents, but it can also be you could provide this workshop for teachers that you're working with, so that they can, it might be informative for them, but then that they could also do with their parents. And if that were the scenario, like if you were to train teachers and if teachers wanted to share this with parents, they could. There's lots of flexibility. So the workshop was written to be about an hour and a half in its entirety, and we have some pilot partners like Unidos US, which are going to be using it in its entirety. But you'll see here that it's broken up by short activities. So we more than encourage you, and it was written in this way, that you could break it up. So you could, perhaps have a short opening discussion with parents to set up the topic, and then maybe do one of the short activities one week and then do the second activity the following week. It's really meant to be modular in that way. And so that is part of when we say sort of learn from your implementation, like that's the kind of detail that we would love to just hear, like what worked for you, and how did you make it work? How were you able to use it? Was it flexible enough for your needs? That kind of thing. You'll also note that you'll see that there are facilitator notes that just give you sort of alternative suggestions for activities. We wrote it just with lots of feedback. I should also note that we've presented this over the past year with different organizational partners and really integrated some of their feedback. But there's suggestions around, being mindful of different levels of literacy among parents, stuff that I'm sure, like, reading things aloud if parents have low literacy levels. There's worksheets all in the appendix that you can use, but you can also make it interactive, and we provide some of those examples. So if we turn to the next. All right. Michelle, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. So this is another example of one of the creative assets that were developed by our partners at the Aspen Institute. These are two examples of images that can be used in versatile ways. They can be printed as large-scale posters, even 24 by 36 size. They could be used as images for social media. They could be pasted into a newsletter as clip art and sent home on something from your school or something from your classroom. These assets live on the Aspen Institute website, and we'll be able to go there from here.
And just as you're doing that, Michelle, just to add, so you might have seen that, so that particular series is about, what children want to be, and you'll see it says, a doctor, a good friend, a good citizen, and the answer is always all of the above. And the point is to be, obviously creative and showing that all of the skills that are necessary to achieve all of those wonderful roles in life are interconnected. And there's, our children can, by reinforcing these skills, we can ensure that our children, can be all of those things, not one or the other.
So Wendy, if you might take it from here, actually, just in showing, this is the Learning Heroes website.
Yeah. So this is the Learning Heroes website. It is that URL that's in the PowerPoint. We are going to be sending around the PowerPoint and the URL, but we wanted to just orient you because there is lots of stuff here. So this is our sort of research page that we've housed all of this for the time being. Again, this is sort of a soft launch. So that's why you'll see this is sort of just very nitty-gritty PDFs, not fancy or anything. But so you'll see that this first big blue box, if you just stay up there, Michelle, at the first box, go up. This first box that's the research. So so if you go down a little bit, sorry, I meant the box with the material. Right there, perfect, yeah. So you'll see here, this is where, if you scroll a little bit further, in this first big section, that's where you can read the full report, and Michelle sent this to you in hard copy, but if you did want to download the presentation deck, that's where you would sort of have that background knowledge. The actual assets that you'll be using, like the facilitator's guide, the workshop, the infographic, the one-pager, and then getting connected to some of the Aspen Institute social media assets and the videos, which Michelle will show in a second, that's where you would get it in that second big block. And also just wanted to point out that on our site, you'll see on the upper right-hand, the toggle is to Spanish. Right now, the facilitator's guide is available in Spanish, and some of the other Aspen Institute resources are currently being translated as well.
Great. So actually, allow me to scroll up to the top here. So this is where we find the assets, including a video that will show if we have a moment. A How Learning Happens Family Caregiver Conversation Tool. This is a conversation tool that's designed to be a parent and teacher conversation guide, and Michelle Accardi will walk us through that one a little bit further later. Again, social media or print assets, the images can be embedded into PowerPoints as clip art, as social media, and we have the How Learning Happens Fact Suite and the multiple choice series that include, that are appropriate for everything from high school down to elementary school, as well as, again, some basic background information about the resources. Would this be a moment to watch the video, ladies, or should we actually allow the teachers to start talking about scenarios and uses? It's up to you.
I actually think at least a minute or two of the video would be really helpful before we launch into that conversation.
Yeah, I think it might give you a sense of what we're talking about. I think that'd be great.
All right.
Back to PowerPoint.
Back to, I think I'm going to go there. There we go. Michelle?
Excellent. I assume that's for Accardi?
Yes, Michelle Accardi. If you want to take it now, we've seen some options of assets. We can now launch into different ways to use it, and my colleague Terrence is going to help me unmute all of the participants so that we can begin the dialogue. How do we do that?
Excellent. Excellent. And while everyone is being unmuted, I wanted to say, keep in mind, despite the potential uses that we're bringing up, we're really looking for your creativity and your expertise in your community and how it might best be used.
Anytime.
Okay, so in thinking through, and before we start, getting your immediate reactions and thoughts, keep in mind we're looking at ways that you could use this with other teachers at your school, with candidates who may be going through board certification. This could really be helpful to help them to understand ways that they can show that two-way parent communication, that they can address a student learning need that is also a professional learning need component for, as well as having these opportunities to use these resources in whatever way, other way may benefit your school site. So I feel odd blindly selecting people, but I'm wondering if Hannah might have some ideas around ways that this whole suite of resources might be useful at JKL. Hannah, are you there? Okay, we may be having a little audio difficulty on that side. So I heard somebody on the line coughing. So who's ready to jump in with some ideas? Just let us know who you are and which site you're at. Is Andrew Maxey or someone from Tuscaloosa there?
Yes, I'm here. This is Andrew Maxey.
I thought I heard you coughing, Mr. Maxey.
Yeah. My thinking, as we were seeing the presentation, is how this might be useful in a couple of cases where we have there are a couple of schools that are really trying to start on the journey of learning about social emotional learning. So that was my initial thought to
absolutely
those two schools. And I was thinking about there's a full-time social worker at one of them, and I was just interacting with her earlier this week, and I was thinking about her in particular with the parent resources, and how my guess is that she will be very, very excited about them, and how to, because she already does a really good job with, so like the screen we're looking at, and about we're saying the right thing, but if people don't understand us, it doesn't do us much good. So that was my thought, working with those couple of schools, and then, you know, if others come up, certainly sharing with others,
sure,
but focusing on the folks that have already stated an intention to grow professionally in this area this year.
Really appreciate those thoughts, Andrew. And that's, you know, one of the reasons that, of course, you know, I asked y'all and invited y'all to join in on this, is I knew you guys were heading in those directions with some work. And I want to also just kind of call out that as we're going through that work, and you're working with those schools, obviously we want to know what's working, but if there are other needs or things that these resources leave gaps for, those are other things that we want to know too. So you know, it really is that reflective feedback that we're looking for and hoping to find. So I appreciate you already starting to think things through, and I know that you know, when your wheels start spinning, great things happen. So excited to hear about that. Valerie Johnson, are you on the line still? Or
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
So
how are you going to make this sim sensational?
Sensational, yes. So I kind of want to piggyback on what Andrew said. You know, I'm a school counselor. That was how I achieved my national board certification. So, I mean, even though I'm a principal, I constantly go back to that school of thought. And what Andrew said about the social worker, my mind immediately went to, yes, we need to involve some of our social workers in this. So I think a big part of this work can be much more successful if we make sure that we include our school counselors in all of this, and then also, where we can, social workers. In Mobile County, we only have 5 social workers in the entire for the school district, so we can't use them a lot, but just offering them this information as some additional resources, I think that they will appreciate. And then also, when Andrew said we say all these things on the left-hand side, and then like this was another thing. I was like, yes, that's exactly what happens. I often see that. I often think of myself as the go-between between parents and teachers. I always try to be on the student side, and really try to stay in the middle and try to see and understand both sides. And some of this is very helpful to me. I know all the educational jargon, and we need to be more aware of what parents think. And so I think some of this can be very, very helpful with parents understanding when we're talking about social emotional learning, this is exactly what we mean.
Excellent. Thank you, Valerie. And I'm excited to see how you guys use, evaluate, and help us to, keep the resources growing. I'm really excited about that. And is someone from San Felipe with us? I don't know if Casey was able to join us, or if someone from his team is on the line.
No, we just have Tan Hossman, but is on mute right now, so possibly in a place where
I'm unmuted now.
Okay. Hi.
Sorry,
Hi,
just finishing up. Hi, sorry, just finishing up conferences with students.
So working with students and parents is what it's all about. So do you have a minute to tell us about ways that you think the resources might be helpful?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I'm just personally thinking right now, I have a lot of social emotional issues going on in my classroom, and being able to have one language, like you were saying, not only for parents, but also for, health workers. We're very blessed to have that social worker in the classroom as well. And so, yeah, I love all of this, coming up with these concepts and ideas, and also thinking about that what we're saying and making sure parents truly understand the meaning behind it. So not using our educational jargon and just saying, I don't want to say in plain speak, but you know what I mean? Just saying it like on the street.
I appreciate it, Tana. And we'll talk more, but also with that amazing cohort you guys have of 26 teachers in one school system going through the process, real possibilities about that work that I spoke about at the beginning, about connecting this work and these resources with the work that they're going to be doing around, in several components, but in particular around those student learning needs, community needs, and educational needs for themselves. So some great opportunities there.
I could see this definitely as a big piece with component 4 in trying to get the students what they need in the classroom, and then being able to extend that to parents and community.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I know we're getting close to time, but I wanted to move a little bit to make sure that we call out that there's going to be a pre-survey, and this is not like an extensive, hour upon hour. It's a really nice, well thought out pre-survey that we'll be getting out to you guys to use, and then we'll do obviously a post survey. So, as with all things National Board, we don't just want to do something. We want to analyze the impact that it may have and collect that data and then do something with it. So I appreciate you guys helping us with that. And as you're engaging other folks, we'll make sure to incorporate all that in. And I'll be touching base with each of you, as part of the routine work that we do with National Board, but also in specific around this work as well. And I also wanted to let you know that as we go through and you start seeing the various resources, particularly the larger print resources or things that you might need, let's talk, because of the great support from Learning Heroes, we do have some resources available to help out with some printing or different things like that. But I don't want to taint your ideas of how to use the resources by saying everyone will receive, one 12 by 13 poster or whatever the case may be. So let's roll around with the resources a little bit, and then we'll have a conversation about what you need and what we are going to be able to, how we're going to be able to support that. So those resources are available, and we'll be working with them as you need them.
So,
Okay.
yes, do you want to help us wrap up, Wendy?
Yeah, sure. So just really want to thank you all for your time, and want to stress that, we're here to answer any questions as you go through the material. We will send around this webinar along with the links. I know we went through it rather quickly, but really invite you to check it out. There's the facilitator's guide, the posters that can be used in print, social media, the videos. There's lots there that we're looking forward to your creativity on how they might be able to be used. So here's our contact information, but we'll also be sending out a follow-up email.
And I
really
want to
thank
add
everyone.
my thanks. I want to add my thanks to everybody. Of course, you all know how to get a hold of me, and I know how to get a hold of you. So let's, as usual, support each other in a community of learning. And you'll be getting follow-up emails from our friends at Learning Heroes, and then I'll be following up with each of you individually as well. So can't thank you enough for being the educators that you are, and know that the work that you'll put in with this will be appreciated, and I know that our school communities and our professional community will grow in many ways because of your efforts. So thanks in advance and often. I think that may be it, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Have a great evening. Bye.
Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.